Now, in the aftermath of the movie theater massacre in Colorado, we are talking to people who not just are either pro or anti-gun control, but people on the front lines of the issue that deal with this on a day-to-day basis. I'm talking about mayors, police chiefs, and also real people here. Last night, we began that series of conversations with Jeffrey Jones, mayor of Paterson, New Jersey, which is ranked among the most dangerous cities in the entire United States. He shared with us his frustration in trying to stem the violence in his city, and he told us that his officers are outgunned all too often on the street. In a moment, we'll speak with another of America's mayors who's dealing with gun violence as well in his city. I'm talking about Jerramiah Healy, the mayor of Jersey City. Now, Jersey City is the Garden State's second largest city. It has been no stranger to violence. In 2010 alone, the city experienced over 1,800 violent crimes. And in one particularly violent episode in 2009, it was crystallized. In one day, 5 police officers were shot, one fatally, during a gun battle with 2 armed suspects. The suspects, armed with pump-action 12-gauge shotguns with a retractable stock and numerous rounds of ammo. In an echo of the massacre in Colorado, one EMT at the time described the scene as, quote, like a horror movie. And joining us now, the mayor of Jersey City, Jerramiah Healy. Mr. Mayor, thanks for a few minutes. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Rich.
You know, as we were just talking about, when we talk about gun violence, your city knows all too well the realities, and I think the nation watched in July of 2009. It was a terrible day for your city. 5 of your police officers shot, and soon thereafter, your clearly infuriated police chief, Tom Comey, said, well, I know a lot of other people in a lot of other cities on the front lines of gun violence have been wanting to say, but he had a microphone and he let loose. Let's let our audience remember. Take a listen.
I don't know how many times a big city chief has to stand here and say, we need help to stop these weapons from hitting the street. This weapon is manufactured for nothing other than to hunt man. It's used as part of a tactical equipment for law enforcement agencies in this country. And it's in the hands of someone who's already been convicted of certain persons not to possess a firearm. So if an inordinate amount of guns end up taking the lives of citizens on our streets and threatening police officers on our streets, somebody's got to wake up and smell the coffee and say enough is enough. We should stop being afraid of the NRA. We are relatively sure that we're tracking the weapon back. It's to a more liberal state that allows you to buy firearms.
And as we learned soon thereafter, the chief was right. Guns came, in fact, from what I believe from South Carolina. Did the chief say what was on your mind as well that day?
Absolutely. You know, and the great irony was that Mark DiNardo, who was killed at the hands of this felon wandering around with a gun, Mark had arrested him on a gun charge years ago. And ironically, Mark's one of the first guys through the door to disarm this guy, and he gets shot. He actually shot 5 people with this illegal gun, and the chief said it, he couldn't say it any better than Chief Comey said it.
Nobody should be walking around with a gun that guy had that day. Nobody should be able to walk in a theater with a gun that the guy had in Aurora, Colorado. I know you've been working and banging your head on this issue for a long time now. Isn't there some middle ground that we can all kind of get behind? We don't need assault weapons, do we?
No, of course not. The weapon that the Jersey City, in the Jersey City case, was not only dangerous on its own, but this guy had enhanced the danger of this pump shotgun to the point of it was almost like a weapon of war. This guy Holmes, it was an assault rifle. It's something that belongs in the theater of war, not in a theater, and it was similar to an AK-47, and he got that weapon, the other 2 weapons, and thousands of rounds of ammunition perfectly legally. And once again, it points for the need of a federal cure for this federal plague. You need one uniform laws all throughout these United States. And as the chief said, unfortunately, our elected officials at every single level are afraid of the gun lobby and, of course, the NRA. I brought ordinances to our city here in Jersey City that our city council adopted. For instance, making it an offense not to report a gun lost or stolen to the police chief within 36 or 48 hours. That's the law here in Jersey City. Also, we passed the law of 1 handgun per month per purchaser. That's all anybody can buy. Why is that important? Because the ATF people will tell you that a multiple purchaser is inherently suspect, inherently dangerous. It usually means it's a straw purchaser who's going in to buy 10, 12, 15 handguns, brings them out, and then turns them over to the criminals. The straw purchaser, of course, has a clean record. Well, at least in New Jersey, you cannot make a multiple purchase of handguns here in Jersey City. Of course, handguns are the deadly weapon of choice for people involved in gang activity, gang banging, drug dealing, and other violent crime. So that's why we chose that particular weapon to make sure that people couldn't go in and buy 5, 10, 20 of these guns at one clip. Not only do we pass it here in Jersey City, we took the battle to Trenton. And the governor at the time, Governor Corzine, signed it into law. And we think anything that we can do to slow up or make it a little more difficult for dangerous weapons to ultimately fall into the hands of criminals here in New Jersey and elsewhere, we think it's worth taking those steps. It's worth that effort. It's worth fighting the fight.
Police chiefs and guys on the job, are they afraid when they go out that they could be outgunned by the bad guys?
Unfortunately, they're not only afraid of it, it is a reality. There are some guys walking the streets who are involved in criminal activity, gang banging and the like, who have weapons more potent, more powerful, and more easily fireable than our own police officers walking the streets. They not only fear it, it is a reality.
Put a human face, if you can. For a lot of people, they hear this subject, Mayor, and they say, oh, you know what, this is all about interpretations of Second Amendments. You got to go to some of the funerals. We're not just talking about, you know, men and women in uniform, but you're talking about some of your citizens, sometimes even kids. Talk about how big a toll gun violence takes on a city like Jersey City.
Well, I don't want to make it sound as if it's Dodge City out here, because our police officers are doing a great job. But there are way too many guns on the streets of Jersey City, on the streets of every city, on little suburban areas and little rural outposts. For instance, Aurora, Colorado, Columbine, Colorado. These are not big city areas, but the outrageous availability of these deadly weapons, and they all seem to get in the wrong hands of either criminals or crazed people, and something's got to be done about it. So we have officers who've been on the job for more than 30 years. If you ask them, big difference between now and 30 or 35 years ago while you're walking the streets and, you know, dealing with crime, and they'll all tell you the same thing. It's the number of guns on the street, and it seems like every other 16-year-old who's involved in violent crime and gangbanging, they seem to be packing, they seem to be carrying. That was not the case 30, 35 years ago, because nowadays it's an everyday occurrence. There's a rash of violence in the last couple of days over in New York City. It's all tied to guns. It's all tied to illegal guns. We don't want any assault on the Second Amendment. We respect hunters, collectors, target shooters. They have their weapons, let them have them. They go through the right process. But it's just so easy to get a gun. A straw purchaser goes in, gets the gun, and the criminal's out in the car waiting for those 10 handguns or 10 other dangerous weapons. And we all know the carnage that they are bringing all over our country on a daily basis.
You know, last thing for me, Mayor, Operation Lifesaver. You put this thing in place, and with private funds, you're buying guns back, and have been doing it for a few years now. And that's terrific, but I did see the number of guns here that were bought back, and Were even you surprised how much stuff is out there in public circulation and some of the kind of guns? It's good that you're getting them off the streets, but even you must have done a double take.
Well, some of them, particularly automatic weapons, there's actually one that we brought in a few years back. It was called the Street Sweeper. And the thing is basically about 14 inches long. It has a big handle like a machine gun, and it's basically a machine handgun. And the horrible moniker for it, a street sweeper. You know, somebody could wipe out 10 people by just pulling the trigger, and it automatically fires all of these projectiles. You know, I didn't even know these things were out there, but they're not only out there, they seem to be on streets all over the United States, and, you know, that was an eye-opener.
Well, I know you've been fighting this, and I just say please keep up the good fight. Mayor Healy, thank you very much for a few minutes. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Rich.